What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Happy Hour Hoops, the Triple H podcast. Happy Hour Hoops, your one-stop shop for enjoying a cold beverage, listening to our ice-cold basketball takes, and getting up to date on everything NBA all the time. Before we get into what we are going over today, a little word from our sponsor over at Manscaped. Happy Hour Hoops and Trainwreck Sports is brought to you by Manscaped. Guys, it's springtime's over, going into full summer season now. I don't care if you have a great bod, a dad bod, somewhere in between, but you need to trim up. You're going to want to look good for beach season. So go over to manscaped.com, check out their products. And while you are at checkout, if you use the code word TRAINWRECK, you will get 20% off and free shipping. That is code word TRAINWRECK for 20% off and free shipping. Guys, today we got a bit of a loaded show with topics. We're going to go over Jokic being the MVP. We got some Dame Lillard rumors already coasting all over the place. Head coaching positions opening up all over the league. Touch on a few of the games from last night, which was June 8th, and then preview Nuggets Suns on June 9th here tonight. Donovan Holden here with Jake Micah as always, and today we are joined by our reoccurring guest, Meerkat. He is our Nuggets guy, and where better to start than with your guy Jokic winning the MVP, Meerkat. Let's hear it for Jokic, guys. What did you think of that? Are you surprised at all or no?
I mean, I'm not surprised. A couple months ago when we did, our futures predictions and stuff, I was a bit worried, because people loved LeBron this year and you were getting big seasons out of guys like Embiid and stuff, bigger markets on the TV more, but they can't stay healthy. And Jokic, as fun as it is to make fun of him for being fat, not working out, drinking 3 liters of Pepsi a day, he's durable as hell, and he's stuck it out this year. He stayed consistent, and I feel satisfied. Like, it feels good. Like, finally, one of my favorite players has won an MVP award, like, first time in my lifetime, and it's just awesome. It's a great it just, like I said, it's satisfying because I would have gone. I've been saying to you guys for months now, I'm going to go crazy if Jokic doesn't win this MVP award. He deserves it. People were trying to talk, Chris Paul and stuff into the conversation, but us Nuggets fans are feeling great right now. I mean, last time was fun on Twitter, too. You're seeing all the old pictures of him floating around. You got the famous clip of, he was a late second-round pick. Nobody really cared about him. When he was drafted on ESPN, there's no announcement or anything. They're playing a Taco Bell, like Case Burrito commercial, and it just comes up on the ticker. No discussion about it. It's perfect. It's the embodiment of his career. He took backseat to Jokic, played overseas for a year before coming to Denver after getting drafted. Comes in as the second fiddle and immediately says, hey, this is my team. Look at what I can do off the bench. And he's ran with it ever since, and it just feels good.
Yeah, and Jake, I wanted to ask you because you kind of once you read this, like, you understand that and it makes sense, but it also is a little bizarre that Jokic is the first center to win the award since Shaq. So, I mean, that's a big, like, we see how much the league has changed, but it's still a bit eye-opening. And, I mean, I don't know. What do you think of Joker's season so far this year? And did you think it would be anyone else, Jake? Or were you kind of, this is kind of Jokic's year, he deserved it?
Nah, the way he played this year he was very well deserving. I think the only hold that people have is because his name is Nikola Jokic and he looks the way he does. Like, if he looked any more different, any more fit, anything like that, like, no one would have an issue with it. It's just a pure image thing. Him playing in Denver, like, Denver is not like a national brand team. It's not like everybody's going out of their way to watch Nuggets games generally. So that's really the only thing against Jokic. But he had a LeBron season. Like, he had a LeBron MVP season. They showed that. Saw it pop up on Twitter that's showing the stats where he's first in pretty much every damn category for the Nuggets, doing everything for them. I mean, what more can you ask for from a guy like that? And you said, mentioning that he's the first center to win the award. That just shows how much the league has changed, because this dude is like he's bringing the ball up and initiating offense for this team. Like, Shaq was never doing anything like that. It shows how much, like, the roles have changed over the last couple of years in the NBA. But yeah, well deserved. I think there would have been more of an argument if Embiid wasn't hurt for 20 games, but Jokic was there the whole season, and he was outstanding and kept that team afloat, especially after his star, teammate went down with an injury. So yeah, well deserved.
Yeah, and the best ability is availability, and so that is what Jokic had all season long. I mean, he even lost his co-star, and somehow his numbers boosted, and they find themselves here in the second round of the playoffs. But I mentioned first center to win the award since Shaq, but it was a lot of firsts. You know, Meerkat touched on how there was a Taco Bell commercial going when Jokic was drafted, and that's because he was drafted in the second round, 41st pick, first ever second round draft selection to win an MVP. Like, it just goes to show you how much more special this award is. First Serbian player to win the award, so a lot of firsts for Jokic, and it's just really good to see. I mean, down the stretch there, I mean, I asked you guys if you thought there would be anyone else. Of course, there's names that you could throw out, but it really, if you're on Twitter or any social media platform arguing today or yesterday that it should have been someone else, I just don't think that's the case. I mean, Jokic kind of had this tied up with a bow on top. Jake, as you mentioned, it really, the only argument against it is probably his name. I mean, he isn't a household name yet, and if he's not yet, he will be moving forward. That goes into my next question. Do you guys think he could win another one of these things? I mean, Jokic is only 26 years old. The Nuggets have a great core. It kind of looks like he could keep producing like this for years to come. Either one.
Yeah, I mean, he's locked down. He's put up 3 great seasons in a row now, being a superstar, an all-NBA talent player, and he's gotten better. He's gotten more minutes every year, and he's getting more and more aggressive. He's going to be one of these guys who gets better. I mean, he just turned 26. He's my age. You see centers in the NBA, especially durable guys like him, play really well into their mid-30s sometimes, you know, and a truly elite guy like that. I think he can get another. The way this Denver team's built, I mean, Murray is signed right there with him for a few more years. He's the focal point of this team, and now people's eyes are going to be on him too. He's not really the flashy guy, like Jake was saying. You know, he's not a household name. You see the Russell Westbrook, sorry. And these guys get all the, you know, post all on Twitter and stuff. Oh, look at their fit heading into today's game. And then, you know, Jokic has never posted because the Nuggets will post it. He's walking in gray sweats and like a hoodie with holes in it and shit, you know, like he doesn't care about that stuff. He's there to play basketball. And he's such a team guy, and he's really grown into being a leader the last year or two, especially through the COVID stuff. I think he's just gonna he hasn't hit a ceiling yet.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to be in the running for the next couple of years and everything. The reason I would be skeptical of, you know, saying that I think he's definitely going to win one is just talent in the league is so loaded right now.
Yeah.
I mean, Giannis is obviously was a deserving MVP the last couple of years, but there were guys that could have made an argument there. You know, we've got guys like Harden still like could get another one. I still think, you know, I think it might have passed by LeBron. I don't know if he's going to have that type of season, but a KD. There's an endless list of guys that I think next year are going to get a bunch of MVP hype. Booker, probably Mitchell, like the younger guys that might Tatum. Yes, right. Jason Tatum, of course. How could I forget? Just other that kind of group. Zion, maybe if he has like a really breakout season, like
Trey.
Yeah, exactly. There's just so much young talent in this league that I think the MVP, you know, the MVP has kind of been dominated. It's only been. There's a lot of like back-to-back winners the last 10 years or so. We've had Curry back-to-back, LeBron back-to-back twice, Giannis back-to-back, and then Harden and Westbrook in there. Like that's kind of the old guard besides Giannis in there. So I think there's a lot of these new guys who are going to be vying for that coming soon.
Yeah, I mean, just so well-deserved, as we mentioned. And it's cool because you kind of alluded to it, Meerkat, with, you know, just him wearing the baggy sweats and the holes in the sweatshirt. And you touched on him, you know, crushing a bunch of Pepsi every day. And there's that famous interview of like, you know, what he's going to do after games and practice. He's like, probably just watch Pokemon for 5 hours. Like,
yeah,
this guy's just such a relatable MVP. Like, it's good to have, you know, just a nonchalant, easygoing guy like this. Like, we've seen the cockiness in the past. We've seen the guys who are self-proclaimed MVPs all season long and then don't get the award. Like, Jokic is just good for the league. It's just a job well done, and he's going to have to continue to perform like the MVP for the rest of these playoffs if they want to advance past the Suns. But we will touch on that preview later. Now let's get into someone who Jokic just eliminated last round, Damian Lillard. Of course, as soon as his season ends, all the rumors are flying around. Dame's going to be traded here. Dame's going to be traded there. Then you see the reports that Dame and that core of the Portland team kind of said they aren't going anywhere. Then their coach kind of stepped away. Jake, what do you have here for Dame? Do you think there's an actual future still there in Portland, or do you think Dame is as good as gone?
So I've been reading up on it and listening whatever to talk about Dame recently in the last couple of days. I'm really split because it seems like the way that Dame is kind of wired, he obviously wants to win, a title, but he really loves being the guy in Portland. Like, he is a god in Portland. He's going to have a statue in the middle of downtown Portland when it's all said and done. I think that's something that really matters to him. So I think, as conflicted as we probably all are on how we feel about what's going to happen with Dame, I think that he's having like kind of that inner conflict probably every day right now, trying to consider his options and trying to decide what's best for him. I mean, he has nothing left to prove in Portland. No matter what happens, he's going to go down as a legend. I just don't see that. I don't see that Portland team. I don't see that organization and that management group getting rid of Dame, because really, like, what else do they have then after that? Like, the Portland Trailblazers without Damian Lillard right now would just go into the land of obscurity, like my Cleveland Cavaliers have kind of gone into at this point. Like, and that it wouldn't be a short rebuild, because really there's not a lot else of other talent to build around on that roster. And that's kind of been the issue. They haven't drafted well enough. They haven't put enough talent around them. They traded 2 first-round picks for a Robert Covington this year, thinking that would help put them over the hump. Didn't help them. So they're missing some outlets, or some assets there. And so it's going to be tough to see them as a viable candidate to win and go forward. And that's what Dame decides that he wants to do. He can shake up the entire NBA if he really wants to, but I just don't see it happening.
Meerkat, how about you? What do you see for Dame's future here?
I think, Jake hit on the head where this ownership group and stuff, they're going to do everything they can to keep Dame. Like, they'll do anything they can. But if he's really, hey, I feel like he's so Portland, he wouldn't be saying, hey, I really just want to get out of here. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, it's just him. McCollum's, over the hump at this point. Like, Carmelo's the best guy off the bench. They have some young talent there, but they're just, you saw it in the Nuggets series, just not enough outside of him, no support. He's got to be sick of it because it's happening year in and year out now. I mean, Dame time can only do so much. So I don't know. I want to think he finds a way out and, forces a trade somewhere just from being unhappy or wanting a change of scenery to win something. And, you look at teams it might be interested in. I hate to hype up Dunny here, but like, I can see him in a Celtics jersey, as disgusting as that is.
Yeah. I mean, for me, as crazy as it sounds, I don't necessarily want Dame in a Celtics jersey if it means giving up Jaylen Brown. And then if you look at it, like, Portland's not dumb enough where they're taking on Kemba Walker's contract and giving us Dame Lillard, no matter how many picks or assets we throw along with that. So I think it's kind of realistic as far as what I want. I mean, obviously, I'm sure Portland would take Jaylen Brown for Dame Lillard, and there's some other moving pieces in there, of course, to make contracts work. And my initial reaction to this was I was leaning into all the hype, and I was kind of down with it. I'm like, yeah, Dame probably is gone. Like, I'm sure he's frustrated with these last couple of years in the playoffs. But then I thought about it more, and I was like, I feel like Dame's been a guy who he's kind of been an old school player, even though he's only 30 and he's kind of in this new era of superstars. But I feel like he wants to be one of those Kobe's or those Dirks where he stays loyal to one organization, because I know he's expressed that before, and things do change. But Meerkat, you touched on it. Like, there's no one really there to help him right now. And you would think that Portland's, front office, and they already parted ways with their coach. So maybe they bring in a new coach that Dame can get along with better. And maybe they do move a CJ and a Nurkic. And I mean, Carmelo, they're probably not getting much for return with him at his age. But then you have a guy like Anthony Simons, who had some big games in the playoffs, won the dunk contest this year. He's getting his name out there. I could see Dame sticking around, but I mean, if that's what's going to happen, they do need to bring in some legit talent, a legit second superstar who's not named CJ McCollum, because let's face it, McCollum's not a superstar right now, and he's not going to get to that level.
No, not at this point.
Yeah, I kind of see Dame maybe staying loyal, but that's up to management at this point. He's done everything he needs to do for this organization. It's time for Portland to start giving back to Dame. Then that's the way I see it.
Yeah, and maybe that means more of those first round picks going out to try to go get another guy in here too, right? Like maybe they sell the future to try to go forward. I mean, there's nothing really else they could do. But their GM did say the other day in their end of season interview something along the lines of whatever head coach they bring in are going to have to make this team work. They were talking more defensively, but make this team work with limited roster changes. So take that for what it is. There's got to be some kind of move, but maybe it's not as big of a shakeup as we're thinking going forward, which would be disappointing because the West is only going to get better next year.
Every day.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think of teams that would want Dame but have the pieces to actually acquire him, and it's just I have no idea what the deal looks like for him.
Yeah, definitely a tricky situation. Something to keep your eyes on, and it won't be hard because it's already all over Twitter, and it will stay that way until we get to July where real moves start to happen. But we mentioned one of the moving pieces in this Portland deal is Coach Terry Stotts, parting ways with the Blazers. But that's already kind of been, a trend here, if you will, in the early offseason. Teams that have already been eliminated for the playoffs or didn't make it. We have the Magic and head coach Scott Skiles parting ways. Then today, Nate Bjorkgren fired from the Indiana Pacers. And then, of course, Brad Stevens, took on that president of basketball operations role with the Celtics. So now there's a head coaching opening for the Celtics as well. Just a lot. I don't remember in years past there being this many coaching openings like at this point in the offseason. We've had some coaching moves here and there, a lot of moving pieces in other off seasons, but I don't know if we've seen this many openings here. Is this a way that the league's going, do you guys think, or is this just kind of out of the blue, one of those things that just happened because it happened the way it did?
Well, I think that this year added a lot of. I think it seems excessive this year because there was a lot of teams that stayed in a holding pattern after the craziness of last year, just for continuity's sake. Like, I think Terry Stotts is a guy that probably could have been, that could have lost his job after last season. It's not like I don't think a lot of people thought that he had a long shelf life beyond this year, but just a lot of teams wanted to stay the course just because of the pandemic and everything, try to keep everything like that intact and everything. But yeah, I think it's an interesting group of openings. Obviously, the Celtics role is probably the most alluring just because of the two superstars and the history and everything there. But the one that's really shocking, I guess it's not shocking after hearing the reports from what's happened in Indiana, but Bjorken, I mean, he was basically like he was like a wonderkind coming out. They were hyping him up as like Nick Nurse's understudy. He was going to be able to do all the adjustments, connect with those guys, and something was missing there. Maybe it's a problem with the Indiana team too. But yeah, I think it seems it's a lot of turnover this year because a lot of teams decided to stay content going into this season just because of where the world was.
True. Yeah, I would agree with that. And like you said, the Celtics is probably the most enticing just with the group. But I like that you bring up the Pacers there because that's, at least to me, the second most intriguing just because where you do have the talent in Portland, we just mentioned that no one really knows what's going to happen there this offseason. So I don't know if there's people lining up at the Trailblazers' door to go for a head coaching position. But with Indiana, on the other hand, you have a star in Sabonis. You have another very talented big in Miles Turner. You have Malcolm Brogdon, Karis LeVert, some other moving pieces there like Doug McDermott. So that's a pretty intriguing job too. And like you mentioned, we thought the current coach they had going into this season or at the end of this season was a good fit for them, but apparently not. So, other than the Magic, some very, enticing roles that could be filled this off or will be filled this offseason. It's just a matter of who. We've already heard some names going around there with the Celtics, and I'm sure they'll interview for these jobs too. But we got Jason Kidd, Sam Cassell, and Becky Hammond for the Celtics. So it's going to be interesting, and it's kind of crazy that we're already just getting a lot of this buzz, and while we still are in the second round of the playoffs. But I guess that's what this offseason is looking like. There's going to be a lot of high profile players moving around. Now we have a lot of coaches. It's going to be an interesting offseason, boys. But
for sure. And I think one of the biggest things to watch for too is with the Trailblazers. I mean, if you want to keep Dame, you have to hire the right coach. You're going to have to hire somebody that's exciting to him, makes him happy, will, kind of cater to him. And I'm trying to think of their options. Like if they bring in like a Mike D'Antoni, I feel like Dame wants out, even though he's an offensive guy, just older. Like one name I think I like for Portland is Chauncey Billups. I know he's so inexperienced and young, but he's getting so much hype already. He was with the Clippers this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's just such a smart, proven basketball guy. I'm so sick of seeing. I know guys like D'Antoni and stuff are great, and Stotts is still going to get a job, but I love seeing new young talent, especially ex-NBA players that we were watching, like Jason Kidd and stuff like that. Not that I'm the biggest Jason Kidd guy, but I want to see Chauncey Billups get a job this year, and I feel like that's a move that Dame could get excited about.
Yeah, and I think that's like the way that we're trending with the head coaches, right? Like you're seeing the successful head coaches are the former players and the guys who have played with this generation. Like just Ty Lue and Steve Nash, just off the top of my head, the first two names. Steve Nash, first year coach, but clearly understands the temperament of his team and also just what works in a modern NBA. Ty Lue, that's why he was so successful in Cleveland and got the job in LA, is because he was able to adjust and able to adapt to the modern game. So yeah, you see more guys like, Chauncey Billups and those kind of guys trying to, get more opportunities. I know that going back to the Trailblazers, Dame kind of requested Jason Kidd, and Jason Kidd was like, that's okay. Yeah. Pulled his name right out of the running. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. I think that Jason Kidd might be the name to look out for in Boston potentially. Yeah. That seems like it's like the move that he's kind of angling for, because he's clearly wanted to get these high profile roles. He worked with got to work with Giannis, coached his former team already before. So yeah, I like the former player route for all these teams. I've heard rumors of D'Antoni going to the Pacers. That was like even before the season ended. So maybe that's a fit. I don't know. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the carousel ends up playing out.
Before we move on, all I can think of, and obviously this doesn't define him as a coach, but every time I think of Jason Kidd as a head coach, I just think of when he spilt that cup of water on the court on purpose to delay the game. Like, I just can't get past that. I'm kind of with you, Meerkat. I like that he's a player coach. I think a lot of players would hop on and, be on board to a Jason Kidd coaching their team. I'm not too crazy about him coaching the Celtics. I would accept him with open arms if that's who we land on. But I'm kind of with you where I'm more for a Chauncey Billups, and even more so for my Celtics position, Sam Cassell type. But yes, a lot of coaching jobs that need to be filled. And speaking of being filled, Joel Embiid dropped 40 points last night, filling the stat sheet, guys. We're going to go into a few of the games from June 8th. Yesterday, like I mentioned, starting with Philadelphia knotting it up in game 2. Philly rallied, 40 points from Embiid, kind of frustrated and, got in Trey's head a little bit. They threw a whole different defensive game plan at Trey, able to slow down the Red Hot Hawks from game 1. What are your biggest takeaways from – I mean, it was kind of a must-win for Philly last night, but what did you guys see in that game?
It was exactly that. Like we talked about yesterday in the preview too, it was a must-win for the Sixers, and they came out with that kind of aggression. But credit to the Hawks, because they didn't make it. They made it difficult for Philly, especially. There was a lot of runs from the Hawks. And going forward, and another thing we talked about last night that they did. Game 1, Danny Green had the most trips down the floor, most possessions. covering Trae Young, and Danny Green only had 2 last night, and it was a lot of Matisse Thybulle and a lot of Ben Simmons, and you could tell how it affected just the rhythm of their offense. I mean, I think the Hawks are missing DeAndre Hunter a little bit, so it would be interesting to see if he's able to come back in for Game 3. But Meerkat, going forward, what do you think? What are you expecting when this series turns back to Atlanta? Now it's tied 1-1 and Atlanta has the home court.
I think if the Hawks want any chance of, winning this series, competing in this series, they have to win the bench battle. And, the 76ers bench went off. I mean, Shake Milton, all the Shake Milton fans were so vindicated last night. I mean, I'm a huge Thybulle guy. Maxey's actually been playing decent these playoffs. D. Howard, I mean, he's hitting free throws, so good for him. And they're winning that bench battle, even though, you have guys like Herter having a huge game. But I don't know. With Embiid fully healthy, dropping 40 like this, I don't see them having much of a chance, even if you get like full-on Joker-esque villain Trae Young. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I can't see it happening either. I think that this team is starting to impose their will a little bit. What do you think, Dunny?
Yeah, I mean, if you get a rest of the series with Embiid playing like that and Ben Simmons actually on Trae Young and able to bother him, I mean, we saw Trae try to throw up one of those famous long distance threes last night, and Ben Simmons blocked it like before it even left Trae's hands. I mean, he definitely looked flustered to start the game, and then certain times down the stretch as well, making turnovers that he doesn't usually make. I mean, Trae still had a salvageable game. I think he still had over 10 assists, over 20 points. So, but yeah, I mean, if it doesn't look like Embiid's meniscus is torn at all, which is kind of crazy. He was looking like Dirk a few times in that game, hitting just smooth fadeaway jumpers on the baseline, really getting whatever he wanted, bullying Clint Capella, who's, a respected defender across this league. He did get into it with Gallinari a little bit in the first half. That was a little foolish, but he cleaned up his act, and Philly went out there and won. I think it could still for sure be a competitive series. We are hearing today, though, that DeAndre Hunter had his own meniscus tear for the Hawks. He will be out for the remainder of the season. So, Meerkat, you touched on, benches and depths of these teams. Someone's going to have to step up for this Atlanta Hawks team. I think we'll see a competitive series all the way through, but if Philly plays like they did last night, I'm with you guys. They should take the series. And then we just had the other lone game being Utah and the Los Angeles Clippers in Game 1. Donovan Mitchell, your guy Meerkat, showed up with a
He played great. He played amazing. Shot really well too.
45 points. Yeah, he had 45. The duo of Leonard and PG had 43. He shot, I think, 45 to 50% from the field, 40% from deep, and those two shot like 33% from deep combined. Jake, I talked about it with you yesterday. Those are going to be the guys who need to step up for the Clippers to win this series, and they were pretty absent for the most part. And Donovan Mitchell, being coached by D. Wade on the sidelines, just said, hey, man, this is my gym. This is my team. This is Utah. And he kind of put the city on his back, and they stole Game 1.
Must be nice to have your owner sideline being able to coach you up just as well as your head coach can do.
Dope. Right? Like, I've never seen anything like that. That's so fun, especially as D Wade, dude. Like,
and that's the thing is, like, it's so funny that it's D Wade owning the Jazz, because we've talked about it like since we started this podcast that we think Donovan Mitchell, like, the potential is the next D Wade, and now it's literally D Wade. It's just crazy, but yeah, Mitchell showed that potential that we've been talking about all year. Like, can he be the superstar to carry a team and go to a finals? That's really the next step he needed to take. This team was built for it. He just needed to fill in that role. And last night, they're down 13 at the half, and he does most of his damage in the second half and just kind of takes that game over. And you could even see, like, at the end of that game, like, Kawhi trying to match it and Paul George trying to match it shot for shot with him, and they just couldn't. The shot making was just at an elite level for Mitchell last night, as it tends to be. And it was nice to see it be done in the playoffs. And the Clippers, again, they've just got to be scratching their heads, because with a 13-point lead, they looked dominant in the first half. They really looked like they were in control. They held the Jazz to 18 points in the first quarter. That could have been some tightness from the Jazz as much as anything else, but it looked like a completely different team in the second half for the Jazz. That crowd was going absolutely berserk in Utah. So Meerkat, Game 2, tomorrow night, I believe. What are we expecting out of the Clippers? Are you expecting a bounce back?
I don't think so. I mean, the Clippers are a team I just don't understand how they play so well when you look at them on paper and stuff. And I don't watch a lot of Clippers games, but I feel like they always need somebody to step up outside of Kawhi and PG. Always need one of the random role players on the team to step up and play kind of hero ball to help them win some of these bigger games against better teams. You know, you saw Luke Kennard off the bench last night, kept them in this because Leonard and PG just weren't playing efficiently at all. And Morris looked like a dumpster fire. Reggie Jackson, you get the occasional, 15 to 20 point game out of him, but then he's your starting point guard. It's just, I don't get it. I don't think their PG, playoff P, and Kawhi are enough to carry this team anymore. They're running into a true superpower in the West playoffs. I think the Jazz take this in like 5.
Wow. I love it. I
will say the Clippers did cover for me last night, so that was cool.
That's
true. Great covering team.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it that is going to be an interesting series to, kind of follow and just see. For me, it's just playoff P. Like, he literally basically promised the entire league and all its fans that, people weren't going to see that again. And now here we are. Like, Kendrick Perkins says some pretty out-of-pocket stuff sometimes, but he called him out, like, on spot today. And it's just like, Paul George, like, you kind of said this wasn't going to be a thing this year in the playoffs, and here we are, second round. Granted, it's one game, but, I mean, he wasn't great in the Mavericks series either. So a lot of this series rests on Paul George's shoulders. I mean, Kawhi is going to do his thing. If Kawhi has one bad game, it can really be excused because he had a couple 40-point games in the last series. So really just the Clippers need Paul George to step up. I mean, he's been labeled a superstar his entire career. It's time to show it. But let's forget about that series. Meerkat, we talked about your guy Jokic at the top, MVP. They got game 2 against the Suns again tonight in the Valley again. What are you expecting from these Nuggets tonight?
I texted you guys earlier and said I actually feel great about this game. I never feel good about the Nuggets going into a game 1. Team of adjustments. I can't keep saying it enough with this. They looked great in that first half. I don't know what Michael was saying to them in the locker room at halftime because they came out flat. Defensively, I mean, they were getting bombarded. They were leaving Mikal Bridges wide open, and he was hitting. That was, I think, the big swing in the game. Aiden, not that, he had his way with Jokic, but he definitely caused troubles on both ends for him. And, Aaron Gordon, he played great. He tried carrying this team, but, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon's shooting more than Michael Porter Jr. That's not great. And this is the same thing that happened in the Portland game 1 we lost where the Nuggets got no free throws. The Nuggets only got 6 free throws in this game 1 compared to 20, I believe, for the Suns. I mean, this is not me complaining about the refs at all. We're not a huge free throw team, but when you're not drawing free throws and you are getting 17 personal fouls in a game, you're going to want to match the other team a little bit at the line there to keep yourselves in it. Will the Thrill coming back, though, is monstrous. Like, that made me very happy. I thought we might have saw him in the first round, but I guess they waited, let him get healthy. He's testing it tonight. I mean, they're saying unless he's really bad, he's going to be going, and that's a big thing for the Nuggets. He's immediately their third best scoring option on the floor right now. He consistent guy. He can score every which way. You see him. That's why he got his nickname, the Thrill. He throws down some crazy dunks, but he can pop those threes. He can play defense, especially perimeter defense. If he's healthy, it's a massive, massive addition for this team.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, because when he didn't come back in the first series that they had against the Trailblazers, I was almost thinking it was the opposite and that it was maybe bad and he wasn't going to come back as soon as they thought. But great to see that they will most likely, right? The words from Shams or Woj, whoever reported it, was that he's expected to. So as long as warm-ups go well, like you mentioned, that he will play. But Will's just one of those guys who, you mentioned he's a third scorer, but he's also, I mean, they call him Will the Thrill for a reason. He can get up and just get out in transition, dunk the ball, get in passing lanes, make steals. Like those are just players that bring a certain type of energy to the game, like almost like Marcus Smart of sorts, where he can just fire the team up just by doing the little things. And I mean, they need that right now. They're missing their star point guard. We mentioned a couple of the normal scoring assets on this team didn't have the best game last time out. So yeah, Will Barton being back is a huge plus for the Nuggets on the road tonight.
Yeah, and I think that, like you said, Meerkat, at the beginning, the adjustments are going to be made, especially defensively. It's not going to be death by 1,000 cuts from all four of those guys again. They're gonna key in and be able to stop one of those guys. Ayton looked really impressive. Ayton's been impressive to me all playoffs. Like, I didn't think he'd put up well against LeBron and AD. Was great against them before the injuries and everything else. And then Jokic, he looked good. He made Jokic work. Like, Jokic still was able to be effective last night, but he made his life more difficult, which we were talking about it yesterday on the preview. Jokic was able to foul out pretty much the entire Portland Trailblazer team. It's not gonna be able to get points like that. They're not gonna be able to do that against Phoenix. And it didn't matter for like 2 3/4 of the game, and then it just turned into I don't know. I think they just got rattled. That crowd started going crazy. Chris Paul wasn't missing shots. Mikal Bridges wasn't missing shots, and then it just kind of fell apart from there. That's the great part about having the crowd back in these games, though, too. It's like you can tell the impact that they have in these second halves. I think we saw it last night in Utah, and I think we saw it in that game 1 in Phoenix, too. So I'm going to go with the Nuggets +5. I think it's going to be a nice close game, I think, right down to the wire. What about you guys?
I know what Meerkat thinks.
I mean, I'm all over the +5 tonight, personally sprinkling the money line and personally hitting the series price right now, because if they win tonight, it's going to drop again. And I think the Nuggets do match up well, especially adding Barton back. I mean, I can't stress enough. He's not a household name. It's just a super undervalued, in general, unless you watch him play. He's a fun guy, brings so much energy on the floor and contributes a lot on both ends. I love them to bounce back tonight. And a little fun fact, the last 2 playoff series the Nuggets have won, they've lost game 1s. Adjustments.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think the Nuggets do cover tonight. And my biggest thing is, and we kind of already alluded to it, but the really only bad loss that they suffered in that Trailblazer series, it's kind of what we saw from them in game 1 of this Sun series. It's just the other guys didn't step up. I think Austin Rivers had 7 points. Michael Porter Jr. was right around 10 points. I think he was held under 10 points in game 1 of this series. Like, that most likely won't happen again. MPJ has been pretty solid throughout the playoffs. Me and Jake talked about it yesterday. Austin Rivers has had a few, 18, 20, 21-point games in these playoffs. And then, of course, Will Barton, we've mentioned it like 3 times now. He'll be back. I just think, Jokic is going to get the help tonight. And he had 21 points last game? Like, that's low for him. He'll probably be right around 30. The MVP is going to be all sorts of motivated. No Taco Bell commercials tonight. I think Jokic is going to go off. I'm not saying that we're confirming a Nuggets win here, but it's just the Ty B's comment.
That's what you gotta go with. I think that's the vibes we need.
Yeah, but no, I like it. I like the Nuggets covering tonight, and hey, maybe you sprinkling it on the money line, that might be right on. I could see him stealing one in the Valley.
Hell yeah,
I hope so.
It's gonna be a good one, I think, no matter what. All right, well, thank you all for joining us. This pod, we'll post this as the pod tomorrow, the first half, and then later again, you'll see this preview coming up. But right before tip-off at 9:30, Suns, Nuggets. Follow us at Happy Hour Hoops 1. Follow us at Trainwreck Spurts. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Happy Hour Hoops, Spotify, Apple. Give us 5-star review, all that good stuff. For Donovan Holden and Meerkat Cat, this is Jake Micah signing off. Have a good night.
Later, guys.
See you guys.